So you have your trusty Nikon 50mm 1.4 AIS lens. It's a manual lens, but you discover a problem. When you move the aperture lever, you can see that when it's at a very small opening, it springs back just fine. But if you open it just a little bit more, it doesn't snap back. What causes this is oil leaking onto the diaphragm blades. Causes them to stick together. Now, ordinarily you would take this to a shop, but this lens is almost 30 years old, so I'm not going to take it to a shop. Instead, I'm going to see if I might be able to fix this. It seems easy enough. Let's give it a try. Hey everyone, CJ Carter here. As I said in my intro, I have a little bit of problem with this lens. I have oily diaphragm blades. So I did what most people do. I went to the internet. First, I looked to see how expensive it would be to repair this lens. And in my opinion, the repair was going to cost more than what the lens is worth to me. So since I figure that this lens is pretty much a goner anyway, I might as well try to repair it. So looking online, I saw instructions and it doesn't seem that difficult, so I figured we'll have a bash. I may stop the video from time to time in case I need to look something up, but for the most part it seems pretty straightforward. So we're going to get to it. So obviously I have my lens here. I have some Q-tip swabs. I have a bottle of isopropyl alcohol. This is 91%. The videos I saw used 70% rubbing alcohol, but I figure this is going to evaporate quicker and possibly with fewer residuals. So I'm going to use this. I have a small spanner here. I got this off eBay. It was only about 11 bucks. I'm willing to pay that much to try to fix the lens, and I figure this will come in handy if I ever have to unscrew anything later. And I have some jeweler's screwdrivers in order to undo some of the screws. And I have a small lint-free cloth here that I can put my discards away. Actually, not discards, my disassembles away. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and I figure we'll get started. Now the first step is to expand the lens all the way. This exposes a screw that's here on the side. And I'm going to take a very small jeweler's screwdriver, put it in. Apparently this is kind of peculiar just to a small number of Nikon lenses. So that's loosened up. I'm not going to take it out all the way. We'll see if this will work. Not yet, a little bit more. There we go. And we'll just unscrew. The lens cover is also holding my filter. And here we have our front lens element. And this is why we needed the spanner. So I got one that's actually easy to adjust. There are two little notches here. If you can see on the ring, there's one here and one here. That's why you need the spanner, otherwise you aren't going to get this loose at all. So be careful not to scratch your lens. And there we go. Let me tighten this up. Tighten the other one up. There we go. And we'll give this a turn. That's all there is to that. So we'll just unscrew this, and this will take off our front lens element. And the great thing is that since this is seated in an assembly, we don't have to worry about realigning it later. There we go. I'm going to put it over here on my lint-free pad. And here's the culprit. Here's our nice and oily diaphragm. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these two screws and move on from there. Going to check my alignment right now because I don't want to get everything all out of whack. So my diaphragm's at 16. My old-fashioned aperture lever for the camera metering is going to be at 12 o'clock. So I have a screw at 1 o'clock and a screw at 6 o'clock, more or less. So I take a very small Phillips head screwdriver and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to add a little magnet to the end of this so that, actually it's not quite long enough. It's going to use that to help me take the screw out. Trying hard not to strip the head. It doesn't want to come out. I'm going to try a bigger screwdriver and hope that gives a bigger bite, and it doesn't. So, try this one more time. Just dig in there. And obviously they've used some Loctite on this. There we go. That finally came loose. Again, that's the 1 o'clock screw. So we'll take that out. I'm going to use my magnet to remove the screw without worrying about dropping it. I'm going to place this on my pad at about a 1 o'clock position. And now the other screw. There we go. They put these in with some thread lock, which I'm not going to use. I'm just going to tighten them down a lot. And that screw will go there at my 6 o'clock position. Now theoretically this should just pop out now. So we'll give this a shot. I'm just kind of noting where everything is. So my ring is at 12 o'clock position. The spring is at about 4. Or if I actually have my screws at 6 and 1, my spring is at 3 o'clock. So here we go. And there's the assembly. Now you can see that my attachment is right there. So I go like that. I also want to note that my lever upside down is at about 2 o'clock, maybe 1:30. But that's good. And we'll remove. Have to go over here. And on the long slot, we have a spring that's attached to a lever that's on the back ring. So we'll carefully remove the spring. It's on a little bit of a hook. There we go. Don't lose the spring. Turn it all over. Move the back cover. And there we see our blades. And we got a lot of oil leaking out here on the sides. No wonder they got oily. There's a little bit here on the edge too. And I just dropped my spring, so I'm going to put it over here so it doesn't roll away on me. And now just pop out the blades. There we go. Now we're going to set to using alcohol to clean out all this extra oil. Now the oil is obviously there for a purpose and I would replace it, but Apparently this uses a very specific type of oil, and I don't have it and it's not easily available. So we'll just clean up some of it and hope for the best and run it dry. So first things first, we're going to look inside the lens, see if there's any oil that's kind of leaked out anywhere. And there doesn't appear to be any. I'm not seeing any shiny bits that are atypical of any place else. Actually, there's a little bit there, so and I'm not going to touch the lens element, because then I'll have to clean the lens element. Though I do have a bit of dirt somewhere, and I'm going to use my trusty air rocket, and there we go. Wow, I just blew everything away. There we go. So now I'm going to set to cleaning the oil off of all of these little bits, and I'm probably going to do this in time lapse, so bear with me. Okay, now the fun part begins, putting everything back together. So, first trick is getting all of the blades back in. As you can imagine, the first 8 are going to be rather simple. The last one you have to finesse into its slot. It has to go under another blade. I mean, it's nothing too onerous, but it is an extra step. And as I move my blades around, I notice that this one has just a speck of oil on it, so I am going to give it one quick dab, just to make sure it's clean. There we go. And the other side as well. Just wanted to make sure. So now we have to stick this under this blade. So I want to keep it in place. Slip it under loosely until everything clicks into place. And there we go, easy peasy. So now there's a little tab here that goes into this long slot. So slip that in. And voila, everything will open and close. That was fantastically simple. So now I have to attach the spring, which is going to be interesting because it wasn't really meant to pop off like this. So it's on like that, and we'll close this down so it's a little bit closer. And my big bear paws aren't happy with this, so I'm going to grab me a set of tweezers and try to hook it on without stretching the string all to hell. There we go. And the back just fell off. Ha! Well, these things were easy. Everybody would be doing it. So I should have been holding on to it tighter. That was my fault. So once more into the breach, dear friends. Okay, I'm not going to make you watch that all again. In truth, it happened twice. So we'll just skip forward to me putting the assembled diaphragm back into the lens. As you can tell, one of my biggest issues was making sure that I kept dust from getting inside of the lens and to clear out any dust that was already in there. Whenever you open up a lens, that's always a problem because you don't want to open it up any more frequently than you have to. And quite frankly, I don't want to have to open it again if I don't have to. So my little air rocket there is used a lot in order to blow out even the smallest wisps of dust. In truth, they really aren't going to affect the image that much. For the most part, all they do is block out a very small amount of light, so small that you probably aren't going to notice, and they really aren't going to affect focus very noticeably either. That's why sometimes even in brand new lenses you will see some specks of dust inside, and nobody is overly concerned with them. Now it's time to insert the diaphragm assembly into the lens. So I'm balancing it on my fingers and trying to align the center pin to a small space that you can see between the aperture lever and the side of the inside of the lens mechanism. I'm not looking through the lens itself, the glass. I'm actually looking at the small opening that was cut out for the aperture lever. Once that's aligned, everything drops in very, very easily. And you just have to kind of fiddle about to make sure that you have the whole assembly with the right sort of twist in the internals, and so that the screws line up with the screw holes. And actually, to be fair, these are not screw holes per se, not on the diaphragm. They're slots, they're curved slots. But you want to make sure that the screw holes that are in the actual lens assembly are lined up correctly. And while I'm doing all of this, I'm also constantly checking to make sure that the diaphragm is still working, that it opens and closes correctly, that if I have it wide open, it opens up all of the way, and that when I close it, it closes all the way. And so I'm using my trusty little flashlight to make sure that I have my screw holes lined up. And like I did when I disassembled it, I am going to use a magnet to help me keep the screw onto my screwdriver so that I can more easily drop it into the hole and not risk having the screw plop onto the glass. Because like I said, the one thing I didn't want to do, and really never want to do inside a lens, is to clean the glass. Blowing off dust should be all I ever have to do. Something I have to give to Nikon is that everything that had threads, whether they were screws or lens mounts or whatever, actually fit together extraordinarily well. I really didn't have to struggle with it or worry about cross-threading anything. Before I tighten the screws down all the way, I'm just double checking that my diaphragm opens all the way, both all the way open and all the way closed. And usually when I'm sticking my fingers in, I'm twisting the diaphragm ring. Now that it's screwed in, I can actually make my fine adjustments to make sure that things are actually behaving like I hope they will. Also, I'm double checking as I'm moving everything around that I haven't gotten oil on anything, because it would be terrible if I went through this entire exercise, close up the lens, and I discovered that I still have oil somewhere that I didn't notice. And as you can see, the diaphragm is flicking open and closed pretty easily. And now it's time to tighten all the screws and start to put this puppy together. Works. May not be perfectly calibrated, but it seems to be working okay. I think I can use this on a camera. So let me take that wide open, look at my lens, see if I need to clean anything off. I'm not seeing any dirt that's going to be a problem. Cool. So now blow this off. Raise my focus ring. It looks pretty good. And again, this is greatly convenient that this is a screwed-in assembly, so I don't have to worry about aligning the front element. And since I didn't take any other lenses out, everything should be easy peasy. So I forgot to take my filter off of this, but this doesn't really seem to be making any difference. So I have my front element in. Wrong screwdriver. Really tiny one. Screw that in tightly. Double check. Yeah, it looks like I have a working lens again. Yay me. I was slowed only by my own incompetence. So, all I have to do is now put this on my camera and see if I can take good pictures with it. I stepped outside to take a few quick pics. As you can see, the contrast wide open is a little low, but it cleans up nicely when you stop the lens down. This is pretty much how the lens has always performed, so overall, I'm going to call this a successful repair.